The 2026 Formula One season is a full reboot of an entire era. Engines are changing. The approach to overtaking is changing. Aerodynamic philosophy is changing. And even how drivers manage energy over a lap is being rethought. On top of that, an 11th team, Cadillac, joins the grid. And a new race in Madrid is added to the calendar. In other words, this will be a season where many teams won't just be refining what they already know, but genuinely relearning how to be fast from scratch. In 2026, the 1.6-liter turbocharged V6 remains, but the hybrid system becomes far more electric-focused. The goal of the regulations is to bring the contribution of the internal combustion engine and the electric system close to a 50-50 split. As a result, maximum output from the MGU-K increases to 350 kilowatts, while the ICE contribution is capped at 400 kilowatts. Most importantly, the MGU-H is removed entirely, the very component that made current power units so complex and expensive. On paper, it sounds great. Fewer complicated elements and more relevance to road cars. In practice, however, this means teams will design the car around the electric side far more than they do today. In racing, this will be noticeable in every wheel-to-wheel battle, because energy recovery isn't just about heavy braking. Every possible scenario will come into play. On some tracks, this could add intrigue. The driver who manages the lap best will be able to attack for longer. On others, there's a risk that drivers will start conserving energy too much, if pushing now means losing power 2 corners later. That's why one key detail matters. The FIA is keeping the ability to adjust the power balance so races don't turn into dull, energy-saving exercises. Easy, automatic overtakes should also disappear because traditional DRS is going away. In its place comes a combination of active aerodynamics and new energy deployment modes. For example, drivers will have a standard boost mode, normal use of stored energy. This boost can be used for both attacking and defending, wherever the driver decides, as long as the battery allows it. The overtaking mode, however, is specifically for the chasing car. It becomes available when you're within 1 second at the detection point, and allows more aggressive use of electric power on the straights. In theory, this sounds fairer than today's DRS, because you're not just opening a wing, you also need stored energy, good lap management, and the right timing. But the obvious question remains, what if it's too easy? Once again, the FIA is keeping control levers. If overtakes become simple drive-bys on the straight, the conditions for the zones and modes can be tightened. If, on the other hand, everyone becomes afraid to drain the battery and starts lifting and coasting, the energy limits can be increased. And there's another key point. Even the most powerful mode doesn't cancel physics. The more energy you deploy during an attack, the more you'll have to save afterward to recharge it. But will it really be that simple? Current cars are huge and heavy, and drivers have been vocal about it for years. For 2026, the FIA is targeting a more agile car, smaller dimensions, lower weight, and simpler aerodynamics. The publicly stated minimum weight is 1,693 pounds. At the same time, safety is not being reduced, it's being increased. Monocoque requirements and crash tests are becoming more stringent. A practical addition for poor visibility conditions is also being introduced. Signal lights in the mirrors, so drivers can better see where rivals are during wet races. The most visually obvious change, however, is active aerodynamics. Both the front and rear wings become movable. The system has 2 states, a cornering mode with maximum downforce and a straight line mode where the wings change angle of attack, reduce drag, and help save energy on the straights. Under the new rules, the floor becomes simpler and narrower. No more complex sculpted shapes, and some elements around the wheels are removed. The stated goal is to reduce dirty air. This should make following easier and wheel-to-wheel racing more realistic. According to FIA estimates, overall downforce drops to around 30% of current levels, and drag is also significantly reduced. That could be a crucial factor. If cars can follow more closely, there will be far more attack attempts, not just one DRS pass per lap. In 2026, Formula One also switches to a new fuel. The fuel molecules must be synthesized or produced from advanced sources such as non-food biomass and waste, with certification of the entire supply chain. From an environmental standpoint, it sounds great. For engineers, it's another massive unknown. The fuel has to work consistently in a completely different thermal regime, without the MGU-H, and with a very different load profile. Some things do stay the same. Wheels remain 18 inches, but the tires become narrower. They're reduced by about 1 inch at the front and roughly 1.2 inches at the rear, and the overall diameter is also smaller. Pirelli is already running extensive tests, often using so-called mule cars, modified machines from previous seasons. Reports suggest the tire specification is largely finalized, but the main question is how they'll behave on a real 2026 car with significantly less downforce. As always, engines remain a critical factor. For 2026, Ferrari, Mercedes, Honda, Audi, and the Red Bull Ford Powertrains project are all confirmed. Honda becomes the factory partner of Aston Martin. Audi enters as a full works team under the name Audi Revolut F1 Team, and Red Bull is building its own power unit together with Ford. Alpine has officially confirmed a switch to Mercedes engines. Even familiar team names in broadcast will change. From 2026, McLaren officially becomes McLaren MasterCard Formula One Team, while Haas will be called TGR Haas F1 Team, thanks to a title partnership with Toyota. A completely new team also joins the grid, Cadillac. At the start, the project plans to use a customer Ferrari power unit, with its own General Motors engine expected later, around 2029. This means the first few seasons will almost certainly be about laying the groundwork. But if the project navigates its growing pains correctly, it could become an unexpected contender within this regulation cycle. Our colleague from the World of Motorsport channel goes into detail about how different manufacturers approach the previous engine regulation change. In 2014, Formula One was set to feature 11 teams, but only 3 engine manufacturers. With Mercedes, everything was more or less clear. Their engines had always been considered very powerful, even if they sometimes suffered from reliability issues. Against the German units, Renault and Ferrari engines were not expected to be significantly weaker. The previous engine regulation change did not immediately produce a single dominant power unit. In 2006, Formula One switched to V8 engines, and that season was defined by a close fight between Ferrari and Renault. Many expected something similar in 2014, especially since the V8 era had consistently delivered tight title battles. Ferrari and Renault did end up relatively close to each other. History didn't lie there. The problem was that Mercedes-powered customer teams launched themselves into a completely different stratosphere. For most observers, this became obvious during testing. Mercedes had a massive advantage in outright speed. In 2026, if there is a clear engine favorite, it will likely reveal itself during testing as well. Heading into Melbourne, teams were in fundamentally different positions. Mercedes approached the season with cautious optimism, with only potential reliability concerns worrying the Germans. Ferrari were fully aware of their deficit, one that couldn't be erased in just a couple of races. Renault, after disastrous testing, rushed to fix early reliability issues and were simply hoping to finish races, at least with the Red Bull cars. At the time, the FIA also artificially limited engine development, meaning Mercedes rivals had no realistic way to produce a sudden breakthrough. Engine manufacturers managed to gradually improve their units and eventually close the gap to Mercedes. However, Honda, which debuted a year later than the others, faced all the same problems multiplied tenfold. The engine was unreliable, like Renault's early test units, and underpowered, like Ferrari's. Only enormous effort and Red Bull's faith in the project managed to turn the situation around. To prevent the new era from turning into a case of one engine manufacturer gets it right and disappears into the distance, the FIA has introduced a mechanism known as the ICE Performance Index. If a manufacturer falls significantly behind, they can be granted additional development opportunities. For 2026, 24 races are confirmed. Madrid joins the calendar, while Barcelona remains, meaning Spain will host 2 races. Imola, however, is absent from the draft calendar. So what should we expect from 2026? If the first races show that overtaking is either too easy or too difficult, the FIA has special tools to adjust the balance. And what happens next? we'll see with our own eyes over the course of the season. A season that will undoubtedly deliver plenty of surprises, even for those who've been watching Formula One for a very long time. See you next time.